You know, very, very recently there was a tremendous earthquake that happened in Nepal, and thousands died, thousands are injured. Rescue groups from all over the world have flocked in there to try and help these people. And one of those we were able to make contact with is Dr. Pravin Dugel. He's with the Retinal Consultants of Arizona, and he just came back from there. Dr. Dugel, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am. Thanks for including me.
Well, we're not sure. We're having a little struggle. Hello?
Yes, I'm on the line with you.
Okay. Dr. Dugel, so you just got back from Nepal. Can you tell us a little bit about what the situation is looking like over there right now?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. The situation is really not good at all. In fact, it's terrible in the sense that this earthquake, and it's not just one earthquake, it's a series of earthquakes, have been really devastating in the most remotest of areas. And what we hear about is really Kathmandu, which is the capital, but where the greatest amount of devastation exists is in the most remote of areas where it's very hard to get to, and certainly there's very little, if any, communication at all. So probably the most unfortunate thing about the earthquake is that the people that it's affected the most are the people that really don't have a voice, and we don't hear about at all.
And so what are you doing? How are you mitigating that? Now, I've actually got a friend, Dr. Tom Rusing, who just went to Nepal this week, I believe, to help, and he was saying the same thing. Kathmandu is handled pretty well, but they're trying to, as you said, forge out into the backcountry where these people have had maybe no help, or maybe it's secondary, maybe they now have infections, this kind of thing, Doctor?
Well, I wouldn't say anything is pretty well. I mean, when you look at Kathmandu itself, there's people that are still living in tents and have been for about a month. So, certainly, the city itself is devastated. But outside, the devastation is really unspeakable. For us to get to the epicenter, for instance, we had to drive on dirt roads that were barely passable for 6 to 8 hours. And it's almost impossible to have a network that reaches out to people out there. The only one that I know is one that I've been working with for the past few years by the Tilganga Eye Institute, founded by a friend and a mentor of mine. His name is Dr. Sanduk Ruit, and he's been using that network to provide eye surgery in the most remote areas, and he's probably given more sight to more people than anyone else on the planet that I know. And what he's done with this catastrophe is to really repurpose that network from a sight-saving network into really a life-saving network. And that's the network that we've used and the military and the government continues to use. So that's really the only way that I know of to reach out to these people in such very, very remote areas. But really, no one is doing well at all. It's just that what we hear about and see is just the tip of the iceberg. Where it's most devastated, we don't even hear or see.
Now, do they need more volunteers, more food? Now, what are people actually needing now in Nepal? More volunteers? What, Doctor?
Well, it's really more of everything, but what they need more than anything else is funds. Realize that things will get a lot worse before they get better. Monsoon season is around the corner, and monsoon means torrential rains. Not just a little rain, but torrential rains, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, and with that comes flooding and landslides in already devastated areas, and unfortunately there are still dead bodies that are trapped in buildings and so forth, and with that comes communicable diseases such as cholera and other diseases. So unfortunately the worst is yet to come before it gets better, and of course already this topic, which will be ongoing for decades, has already been wiped away from the headlines. And as you well know, our capacity for attention for news is very small. So the biggest fear is that the voiceless will have absolutely no voice at all as they're struggling even further. So all that I can really do is to try and be a voice and try and raise funds. And at the end of the day, what they need is funds to buy the very basics. We're talking about tarp for protection, food, medicine, the very basics. Imagine there are hundreds and thousands, actually millions of people that are left with dead family members, kids that are left without parents, people that haven't been recovered, just bracing for this horrible monsoon season with diseases to come.
That's great advice. How do people donate? During these kind of crises, there are a lot of groups that spring up that are not legitimate. How do we know where is best to donate, Doctor?
Well, that's a great question, and really that's one of the reasons that I went there, because I know this network very well. I've worked with them for many years, and what we've done is to establish a foundation. If you go to our website, which is retinalconsultantsaz.com, you'll see a red button there that you can click, which provides a link to Relief to Nepal, and all of that money, which is raised through the University of Southern California and us, and we are collaborating practices, will go directly to the Tilganga Eye Institute and this network. So if anybody wants to help, I suggest going to our website, which is retinalconsultantsaz.com, and clicking that red button that says Relief for Nepal.
And what about food? I know there have been a lot of organizations trying to get food out there. Are they still short on food as well?
Well, they're short on everything, but it's not so much just delivering the products. Realize it's the distribution that's really the challenge, and that's why I keep emphasizing there are some great, very well-known, extremely well-meaning organizations, but when we went out to these areas, very few people can get to the remote areas, and the only people that can get there, as far as I know, that the military is relying on, that the government is relying on, is really this network from the Tilganga Eye Institute. And again, it's not just a matter of having foodstuff and medicines and so forth enter the country. If they enter the country and get stuck at the airport, it really is of no use at all. It's a question of finding a network that can not only accept all the necessary distribution and relief products, but also distribute it appropriately in the most remote areas. And Tilganga is the only network that I know that can do that.
Well, I tell you, that is a big subject. Nepal, certainly a great tragedy. A lot of folks helping. Dr. Dugel, thanks so much for joining us today and for what you're doing in Nepal as well.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. And we'll take a break. We'll be right back on Morning Scramble.